Hello, welcome to Video Mania 2. I'm the man behind the counter, Duncan, and today we're going to talk about Terminator Salvation from 2009. It stars Christian Bale and Sam Worthington, and it was directed by McG. This movie is obviously a follow-up to Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines, but the rights bounced around again, and so another company picked it up, but they did follow up the events of Terminator 3. And this is the movie that I like more each time I watch it, and it really explored, the events after Judgment Day. It took place almost entirely, other than the opening scene, it took place in the future, which is 2018, which is not the past now, but obviously, but it was made in 2009. So this one really took place in that the war with the machines, and you got to see it and really see how life was. Because in the other movies, you saw glimpses of it here and there, but here it takes place. You really get to explore this world now. The cast is great. The direction is great. The production design is great. The special effects are great. There's a lot of good stuff here. So I could tell, and this is always my thing, like, when a franchise is taken away from its original creator for whatever reasons, and the original creator of the franchise isn't in charge anymore, my always biggest concern is the ones that are running it. Are they fans? Are they fans of this franchise, of the mythology and the lore? Do they care about it? This movie, for any of its flaws, and there are some people that point out a lot of them, but I think it does have its flaws, but overall I like it. But they were fans. You could tell these were Terminator fans that were behind this. So, let's go into the plot. The plot starts out in 2003, right before the climax of Terminator 3, and we meet Marcus Wright, Sam Worthington's character, and he's on death row, and Dr. Serena Corgan from Cyberknife System, who's dying herself, is trying to convince him to sign over his body to science. So he agrees to do it, and then he wakes up in the apocalyptic setting later and doesn't know why, and he barely knows who he is or what's going on. So he's trying to figure that out. And John Connor is played by Christian Bale now. Christian Bale is always good. And he's not necessarily the leader of the resistance yet, but people look at him. He's a prophet, and he does command a lot of respect, and people believe that he is the salvation for humanity in their war against the machines. So now you really get to see the war taking place, what humans are doing to survive. And there's another great character, Blair Williams, played by Moon Bloodgood. She's great here. She's a fighter pilot for the Resistance. And so the Resistance has to be resourceful. They're trying to find a new weapon to really take out the machines, and they believe they discovered it. But John Connor realizes that the guy who will be sent back in time and ultimately be his father, Kyle Reese, played by the late Anton Yelchin, who Marcus Wright runs into, as well as Blair Williams, they realize that, he's been captured and he's going to be exterminated, or if they attack this Skynet base where Kyle Reese is, he'll never be. So he has to have conflict with the generals and other stuff. He needs to get Kyle Reese out of there for obvious reasons. And so ultimately, it all ties together here. And there's a few holes in the plot here and there, but overall, this movie, like I said, I enjoy it more each time I watch it. I like the setting. It explored things. It took risks. I thought this was a way to take the franchise in an exciting new direction, because Terminator 3 kind of rehashed a lot of Terminator 2, and it did some stuff before it had its kind of twist to set things off in a new direction. This movie explores it, and I thought that was really good. And like I said, it's very enjoyable. I like it each more, and I think it was bold and risk-taking, and I think a lot of Terminator fans look back on it more fondly. Maybe not as fondly as the originals, obviously, but they do look back on it with a valiant effort and a bold movie. And like I said, the cast and direction's great. Everything's good here. Now, here's where the kind of disappointment was for me, is I was like, okay, I'm in. You have some new characters, you have new things, and I want to see the war with the machines and how John Connor ultimately leads to the salvation of humanity. And unfortunately, the rights bounced around again. Big surprise. And they decided to follow it up with Terminator Genesis, which I was like, okay. And they brought Arnold back. And I remember I didn't see it in the theaters, and I heard some mixed things. And I had friends that are Terminator fans; they didn't like it, so I rented it one night, and I don't know what the hell I watched. It had some interesting effects, and then I saw some trailers like James Cameron said it's great, and I was like, I watched it, and I don't know what the hell I watched. Amelia Clark, who's a great actress, by the way, she was playing Sarah Connor this time, and Arnold was an older Terminator. To explain that, and then John Connor, they did some crazy stuff with that character. And at the end of the day, I don't know what the hell I watched, and so it failed. And so then they were like, "Well, we'll reboot it again." And then there was Terminator: Dark Fate, which was more recent. And Linda Hamilton's back now. We're going to throw out the Rise of the Machines and Salvation, and we're just going to start, after Terminator 2. It's going to be a requel, which I hate requels, most of them anyway. And then that's what this was. And they made some creative decisions that were pretty bad. And at first, I was kind of interested because they're like, James Cameron's returning. And I was like, okay, and he's writing, and he's going to be more actively involved. But I really kind of wonder, maybe he had some things to do with it, and maybe he did. And he did write. He had a hand in it. But he's making like 5 Avatar movies, and you know how he goes all in. So how all in was he in on Terminator Dark Fate, I don't know. But the movie, the creative decision, that's a movie that entertained me initially, but the more I think about it, the less I like it. The creative decisions, it just scraps the original 2 classics and just takes it to a direction that, like, why? It was competently made and entertained in certain respects, but it didn't work, and it failed. And I think when we get back to Salvation here, I think one of the ultimate disappointments with me was this movie didn't perform poorly, but maybe they could have followed it up and scaled the budget back a little bit and get a little more creative. And don't say, oh, it can't be done, because one of my favorite post-apocalyptic movies is Cyborg, and that was made for next to nothing. So, I'm not saying you make this for next to nothing, but you could scale the budget back and tighten up the story or something. But there were so many things you could follow up and ultimately see John Connor's ascension to the victory over the machines. But that was rebooted not once but twice, and both of those failed. And I think the franchise is ultimately dead, unfortunately. But I really thought that was a shame that this wasn't followed up on. Now, it wouldn't surprise me at some point in the future if it's remade, which I would refuse to watch. I don't know what they could do, but the Terminator franchise overall, the Terminator franchise to me is the first one through Salvation, which, like I talked about, I wish they had followed up on. But those are great movies. I have a lot of great memories with them, and I love this franchise a lot. And I'll always be grateful for the good installments that we did get. So that's my final thoughts on it. Anyway, what are your final thoughts on the Terminator franchise? Do you think it'll ever try to be revived again or remade or whatever? Let me know any of that in the comments. And also, what did you think of Terminator Salvation? I'd like to hear your thoughts on the direction of that and what could have been done. Any of those things, let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.